So, Pete, can you imagine what the first question is all about?
I'm going to hazard a guess it's something to do with Meghan Markle.
To mark his 80th birthday this week, Thomas Markle has begged Meghan to call him and let his grandchildren see him for the first time. Is it true or is it false?
Well, I know for a fact this is true, and I don't really like families that air their laundry in public. I just think it's very un-British, and I don't really like it with these kind of stories. I also don't like families that withhold their grandkids from their grandparents. I think that is a level of cruelty.
How damaging has she been to Britain in America?
I mean, I think at first there were some headlines. Like, I think everybody's saw that royal wedding, was very excited about it. It was an American. It was kind of a romantic story. But now, I mean, especially since she started trashing the royal family, that Oprah interview a few years ago, the very self-absorbed, it's just
But
cringy.
has she persuaded, the United States of America that British people are very racist?
No,
Because I will say one
she has
thing.
not.
I will say one thing. And I know every Brit says this. Look, there is a history of slavery in America, and I get that. We just looked through and went, we didn't know she was black.
I agree.
And that
I
might
didn't know
seem
she was black.
silly, but in Britain, there isn't the historical damage that slavery has that America has to suffer.
Look, I mean, I didn't even know she was black either, and I don't think it's done any damage. I don't think people look at Britain and think they're racist, especially in London. I mean, as a matter of fact, it's quite the opposite. I mean, the news and everything that gets shown in the United Kingdom about London looks like there are no more English people living in London.
But these people seem to think that they should air their dirty laundry.
And that's the bit that's really weird, because you have a sort of a two-stage feeling to this story. You go, oh, you know, that's really sad that it's come to that. And then you go, well, hang on, he's actually just press released that. He's probably even sold the story. He's made money off the fact that he's got a family grievance that he's airing. So it's just weird.
Do you know something? Ricky Gervais made this point in the TV show Extras. Well, of course, if you're getting married, you need a press tent. You know, of course you need to press release out before. Do you know something? I don't care what my viewers are married, or who they've married, or what they're interested in, or what they do in bed. And the thing I hate most of all, and this keeps getting edited out of the show, I hate, in the old days, bravery was running into machine gun fire. Nowadays, it's, oh, there's you in your underpants. Congratulations. Why do we care more about what we say than what we are?
Absolutely. It's a consumer society that's built around what we think about ourselves and how we portray ourselves, rather than what we actually do. And so if we get back to celebrating genuine victories, people who have accomplishments, who are genuinely brave, who have done something that is remarkable, rather than celebrating somebody for their opinions.
Yeah.
Or their victimhood.
Yeah,
right?
indeed.
Yeah, that's
Absolutely.
Why are we celebrating victims?
Oh, you like Speedos. Oh, you're so brave. It's nonsense.
The one thing I will say is, I don't know whether this is as true in America as it is over here, but I do think the Brits rally around certain people who do incredible things, and I use Sir Tom Moore as an example of that. You know, this was the daughter was less
good.
But actually, you can use the daughter as another example of that. Is actually, we rallied around Sir Tom Moore when he was doing the thing and what he achieved, and then also the country also rallied around the fact that the daughter overstepped.
Yeah,
you know, the one thing I will give the Brits, and you know, I'm just as guilty of this myself, is we don't tolerate hypocrites, but we will raise people up if they deserve it. And I do think you're right that we've cheapened the deserving aspect of it, but in certain moments, do you
know why you are completely right on this? Captain Sir Tom Moore was what he was, an old git who was trying to walk to raise a couple of quid for charity. He never claimed to be the greatest man in the world. Now, obviously, the media talked him up, including our good friend Piers Morgan, who was right to do it. Yeah. But fundamentally, he was just some old man who was walking backwards and forwards in order to raise a couple of quid for the NHS. We love that. But I just hate the whole hashtag victim as well. Oh, bugger off. Yeah. It's a waste of time, as far as I'm concerned. But anyway, Pete, Thomas Markle, good 'un or wrong 'un?
Oof, God. Next.
Why is it hard to answer that question?
I don't know.
I'm not joking. Why is it hard?
I don't like binary choices on people, because I think a good person could do bad things and a bad person can also do good things. I think Thomas Markle.
I've seen your Twitter.
But I think Thomas Markle, I agree with Ben that it is weird that he's had to do it like this. Although I agree with David that this is a sad story.
Okay, let me ask you this. You're an uncle.
Yes.
Is he, thinking about Pete Barnes the Elder, is he a desperate grandfather or is he a media hypocrite?
I think he's...
Or can he be both?
I think you can be both, but on this one, I'd go desperate grandfather because there is something, I think, and probably people watching at home will get this, that having your grandkids withheld from you, I can only imagine is a brutal, brutal thing.
So has he publicly begged on his 80th... Oh, so awful.
Yeah.
Has he... I hope this isn't true. Has he publicly begged on his 80th birthday for his daughter to let him meet his grandchildren for the first time? You're an uncle. That must be horrendous.
It's horrendous, and it's sadly true.
It is absolutely and unfortunately true. OK, so question 2 goes to Jennifer. The Secret Service have been slammed for failing to defend Donald Trump after his attempted assassination by recruiting too many what? And what is the answer?
The answer, I believe, is women. And it's because the head of the Secret Service, who's a woman herself, was doing an interview, I think a couple years ago, basically saying that, yes, and we're going to get our female participants in the Secret Service up to 30%. I believe there were even a few that did not pass the test that got put in there anyway. So yeah, that's gonna be a problem. I mean, obviously we have to look into the issue.
Hang on a second. Kim Jong-un has an entirely virgin female security service apparently able to do their job, and he's still alive.
Yeah.
So are you not being sexist?
Well, I don't. I think I was just answering the question. I don't actually think I was being sexist. And look, I'm all for meritocracy.
Sorry, David.
There was another problem, wasn't it? That they were actually midgets.
Yes.
But they were actually short. They were too short to cover the president.
What should be the approximate size for you to be able to defend Trump?
No, to defend Trump. Trump is 6'3".
Yeah.
So you need somebody who is 6'3" or taller to cover him physically.
Yeah.
And that's the point of it. And these women, I think, were kind of even shorter than me, which says something.
So before we go to Pete,
by the chair.
So it's a heightist thing, not a sexist thing, perhaps.
Before we go to Pete, look, you've spent a lot of time on prime ministerial planes, at the White House and all this sort of thing. How much of a risk is it, do you feel, when people stand up and make these speeches? Do you feel afraid when you're one of the journalists to cover it?
Most of the time, we're in such kind of protected environments. You have to go through so much security, both here and America. Actually, I remember my one time in meeting Donald Trump, I literally had to go through 7 layers of security just to get to the back of a CPAC conference where he was. And so most of the time you feel relatively safe because of that.
We know that Americans said to the US Secret Service, who's that bloke with a gun? And the US Secret Service failed to act. Now, I would go to an event, as you went to an event, with somebody with a sniper rifle, because you'd assume it's our guys. What went wrong?
Honestly, I have no idea. I take my hat off to the Secret Service in general. I think if you're willing to stand in front of a bullet to protect somebody...
Well, if Trump had taken his hat off, they'd have taken his hand off with it.
But what I'm saying is we have to be very careful. The Secret Service is about to come under a load of criticism and a load of praise at the same time, and I think we have to be very careful of not over-praising and over-criticising. I do think there is a problem with this kind of diversity hire, and if you're right that certain women have been given kind of privileges to boost the numbers, that is a problem.
Sorry.
What?
Are you talking about Secret Service with privileges? That is dangerous.
That's dangerous.
However,
I do think that a lot of questions have to be asked, and a lot of questions need to be answered, but I'm very careful about this kind of jumping on it with 2 feet with immediate criticism going down this, it's because the women. It's not helpful.
Hang on a second, Ben. You were a member of Parliament up until recently. Can I tell you one thing? On behalf of my viewers and listeners, I'm dreadfully sorry that you've been let down by a terrible Conservative campaign headquarters. I'm allowed to say the name Alan Mabbott. I hate that guy so much. I mention him in every show. But, we have to keep our democracy open. We have to allow people to walk around. I'm a good friend of Nigel Farage's. He refuses to have the street cleared when he walks round because he wants to meet people. Similarly, your constituents were able to walk in to the Palace of Westminster and request a meeting with you. Where is the balance, Ben?
Yeah, I mean, that's it. The best bit about that job is talking to people.
Yeah.
Because you are a pretty rubbish MP if you don't know what's going on. So when you get out and about, you meet people, you find out what their issues are, what is top of their list, because it's not what people tweet at you, it's not what people email about, or it's actually banging on doors or meeting people out and about is the best bit.
I used to work for the Royal Borough of Windsor and Maidenhead when the Prime Minister was the Member of Parliament for Maidenhead, Theresa May. You know, we wanted to put her behind barriers. We wanted to wand everybody and check everybody and frisk everybody. She said, even though I'm the Prime Minister, I insist on meeting my constituents. But all it would have taken was one idiot to put even this glass into her face, and it would have been a nightmare. What was the thing that was blamed for the attack on Donald Trump? Recruiting too many of what?
Women.
Goodness me, it was women. You're absolutely right. So on to Ben. Keir Starmer has defended Joe... Oh, God. Keir Starmer. Why are we even asking this question? Right, I'll read it because I'm contractually obliged to do so. Keir Starmer has defended Joe Biden after he called President Zelensky President Putin. He said the US president is on top form. Is it true or is it false? He was on top form. I mean, what's bottom form?
Look, he's obviously got a different view of standards to everybody else. If that is Joe on top form, I worry about when he has a bad day.
Were you there when President Zelensky addressed Parliament?
I was, yeah.
That was a gripping moment.
It was magical.
I was
absolutely
in Parliament
magical.
for that as well, and it was absolutely incredible.
So he was stood at the top of the stairs in Westminster Hall, and it was a cloudy day, but whilst he was speaking, the sun came out behind the window, and it just backlit him, and kind of all of the dust that floated around.
Help me get the plane.
My voice
is a bit robotic.
He went, thank you, give us some planes.
It's President Zelensky. He said, well, Ben Everitt did get us the planes, but it took you long enough. Well, I mean, it's not his fault. And you'd left office by the time they were delivered. But, you know, you are sat there as a Member of Parliament, and I'm not going to mess about with this. There was a war. I was one of the idiots that went over and tried to defend Ukraine. I think there were hundreds of thousands of people. I ran a logistics organisation knowing nothing about logistics. We streamed over. This country kept Ukraine alive. Admittedly, it was only for about 3 or 4 days and then NATO forces moved in. But, you know, when you look at Zelensky, when you listen to a speech like that, and then you watch an idiot like Biden who doesn't know what day it is, you know, there was going to be a genocide that you stops and that I stops in our own tiny way. But this idiot doesn't even know what day it is.
Yeah, and he's in charge of the biggest nuclear arsenal in the world as well. Yeah. We've got a balance in NATO, and I think it works pretty well. We're the brawn, we're the brains. The Americans are the brawn.
Come on.
You know what? I hate to tell you, but that's all going to change because you saw Trump's vice presidential pick.
Isn't Donald Trump's vice president a black woman called Joe Biden? No, I'm completely confused. Right, can we just confirm what's going on there? But actually, in truth, we wanted to pay 2% of our GDP on the military. We did that. Donald Trump has strengthened that military alliance, right?
He's strengthened NATO for sure, because what he's saying, and the same thing J.D. Vance has been saying, is like, look, the United States of America is going to have to turn our interests elsewhere, and it would behoove Europe, the United Kingdom, people who are really on the doorstep of Ukraine, to step up their own national defense because, I mean, look, President Trump is the only president that Putin did not invade Ukraine under. He invaded under Bush, he invaded under Obama, he invaded under Biden. So there is something, as much as people joke, that Trump's like, I'll end this in 24 hours.
Yeah, but Trump, but here's the other thing.
I see peace coming.
Jennifer, here's the other thing that Trump said to Kim Jong-un. He said, listen, Rocket Man, we've both got a red button, but my one works. Yeah. And then he said, we spend $500 million on war games to threaten you. If you back down, I'll back down and save the American taxpayer $500 million. I mean, Pete, you've got to say that whatever you think about Donald Trump, that was an eminently sensible position.
Yes, I always thought that Donald Trump emulated the kind of the mad theory as a walking human being, is the mutually assured destruction, as a kind of embodiment of it. And I remember listening to, I think he was out of the Brookings Institute in America, basically arguing that the thing with Donald Trump, the world leaders like Putin or Kim Jong-un or any other kind of nefarious actor didn't like, was the fact that you didn't know what he was actually going to do. And that level of chaos actually brought a level of order to the international world, which it genuinely needed. This idea that, you know, everybody held hands and sang Kumbaya before Donald Trump was absolute nonsense. I want to talk about when Biden called Kamala Harris Vice President Trump. They all clapped. And the Zelensky moment, they all clapped.
They all clapped.
And all the world leaders just stood there
Like
and
seals.
clapped. And I'm like, I'm sorry, what?
Yeah.
At what point did the leaders of the NATO and the leaders of these independent nation states start saying, you're not fit to be in charge here, what are you doing?
They're complicit. They are complicit in this
I completely agree.
farce that's
Completely
been going on for 3 years.
You have spent a huge amount of your life reporting on British Prime Ministers. I saw you on the plane. The allegation against Keir Starmer, to be clear, is that by saying that by saying that Joe Biden...
There you go.
By saying that Joe Biden... It's Donald Trump or Joe Biden. They're confused. By saying that Joe Biden is compos mentis, is he not interfering in the US election in quite an unfair way?
Well, no. He was choosing his words very carefully. He's quite good at this, Starmer was. And he was talking about, and he constantly referred the question back to the success of a conference and how well Biden had led the conference. And to be fair, he had until, you know, right at the finale where it all spectacularly went on.
So look, you've just laughed at me for getting the names mixed up, and I get that. There's no problem.
I'm a token lefty here, so I've
got token lefty. Do you know what I love about this show? The token lefty spent most of his career working at the Daily Express. That's the most lefty-wing thing we can get here. That's the biggest communist. We can't get Brezhnev. We can't get Khrushchev. We can't get Andropov, largely because they're similar to Joe Biden. Rod the back, stick them out, they'll be all right. You are the biggest lefty we've got. Did Keir Starmer say that Joe Biden was on top form? Was it true or was it false?
Yeah, he did say that.
He did say it, but it wasn't true. But the question was, did he say it? Yes, that was absolutely true.
That Was The Woke That Was continues after the break. It's time for That Was The Woke That Was with Andre Walker.
According to a new poll, who is now the clear favourite to win the Tory leadership battle?
It's Kemi Badenoch. And Kemi Badenoch has always been the favourite to win it. And,
Why do you think Conservatives like her so much?
Well, it comes down to... I think it comes down to the culture war business. She's very good at, I mean, it's not just that, you know, obviously she's a black woman that puts her into a certain space of the Conservative Party anyway, but she's very articulate on the
So Ben...
But she's terrible on the economy.
So Ben, I'm sorry to say, you don't have a first round vote.
No.
I'm sorry to say, because you're no longer an MP.
I did until a couple of weeks ago.
This is a show that is watched by people who are Conservative. I'm a former Conservative staffer, very proud of everything that Margaret Thatcher did, Ronald Reagan did, and less so about Rishi Sunak. But you ran into that election and you were wasting your time, despite the fact that you were a good member of Parliament who had a great voting record. That's got to have been depressing.
Well, ultimately, you have to work out what is within my control. And with 6 weeks to run into to an election, all I could do was work hard. You know, the stuff, the other stuff was beyond my control.
But
right?
you can't sit there now and say that you think that Rishi Sunak's a good bloke.
Well, I think certainly he made some decisions that didn't help me. I could have done with a lot more time.
Everything he did didn't help you. Yeah. Losing the election for Prime Minister, but taking it anyway was the first bad start.
Exactly.
Losing to Liz Truss.
The coronation probably wasn't a...
Losing to Liz Truss, even worse. I mean, the whole thing. Can I tell you one thing? Well, you know this already. Conservatism has never been so alive in this country. Yeah. Look at shows like this. Look at people like me. Look at GB News. Look at the number of votes for both the Conservative Party and Reform. Look at the melting of the SNP.
Yeah.
Conservatism has never been so alive, and yet we've been screwed.
And you've got.
And I say we.
So Conservative voters want to vote for Conservative politicians, but we've had about a decade of Conservative politicians who talk about issues but without talking about their values. They're not explaining, I'm a Conservative, I believe this, I want to change this, and this will make your life better. If we do that as Conservative politicians, show the working, explain the narrative, show our values, then voters, instead of seeing a politician who pops up and talks about an issue, voters will actually see why we're doing it. They can relate to what we do.
Now, Ben, to my left is Pete Barnes, a man who didn't have a career in TV 2 years ago and is now one of the biggest names in Conservative media. And what he's going to do for everyone, is explain why conservatism is not alive. So, co-host Pete Barnes, explain.
Because it's not, because what you think is conservatism is actually reactionism.
OK.
Because for me, not everybody running around calling yourselves real conservatives, you're not conservatives, because you're not basing your decisions out of pragmatism, you're basing them out of ideology, and conservatism is not an ideology. That is the point. It is a philosophy, it is a way of looking at situations. This is why I get really irritated with the argument.
But you said people who voted for it used to be called the Brexit Party were the greatest friend to Jeremy Corbyn. You're going to stand by that now, aren't you?
I still think Nigel Farage has done more for British socialism than Jeremy Corbyn has in his entire...
So, you know, he's sitting there saying that no matter what the mistakes were of the Conservative Party, no matter what the mistakes of Rishi Sunak, the fact you were booted out of office is the bigger issue, and he blames the Reform Party. Is that right?
I think there's a lot in that, because Reform were able to talk credibly in bullet points, but broadly saying the same things that the Conservative Party says. The reason they were listened to is that people were expecting more from a Conservative government from the past.
OK, David, I'm going to say this to you. And, you know, I found it very difficult. I've rejoined the Conservative Party. You know, I was on the selection panel for the Member of Parliament in Windsor. I had a big argument with CCHQ. Delighted to have done it, boot them out. I say that electing a government that allows CCHQ to continue, Conservative Campaign Headquarters, is like resolving the problem of a crack addict by giving them a crack. Who is the front runner for the Conservative leadership?
It's Michael Gove's former best friend, Kemi Badenoch.
I will tell you, I was on the phone to a Conservative MP today who said, please don't get Michael Gove's protege, Kemi Badenoch, but you are right, it's Kemi Badenoch. OK, so to Peter. Simon Cowell has invited transgender men to audition for his new boy band series after only 40 men were willing to sing in Liverpool. Now, listen, you're from Wigan.
Yes.
I went to school in Liverpool. 40 men.
40.
All he needed to do was fill them with a couple of pints of Guinness. He would have had about 800 of them.
They're like, that is quite surprising. Is this actual diversity, or is this tokenism for a couple of headlines? This is what really annoys me.
Oh, but come on. I saw Union J, and I've met ladies who are lesbians, and they looked identical.
I don't even know who Union J are.
He's lying.
You might look like a member of Jedward, but cry.
Sorry, you're accusing me of looking like Jedward?
Jedward, yeah.
Jedward's
you
dad.
You come for me all show, I'm coming for you now. 2 years of abuse I've sat here.
Is that Jedward?
It's Jedward going, Andre, you're a disgrace. What are you doing? What are you doing? I will tell you a story about Jedward. I introduced a TV show for Netflix, right? It was like the whole cinema was great. I walked in. You know, I was feeling like I was the man, right? You know, I've never had a good career, but I was there. and I said, this is the Gypsy Billionaire documentary. And Alfie Best was there. And let me introduce the guest. Did all this.
I was there for that.
And then Jedward invaded the stage. You're too boring. Go away. Go away. And I'm thinking, I've never taken ketamine.
Yeah.
But this is what. But I imagine this is what it would feel like when. Oh, do you want to introduce a documentary for Netflix? Yeah. Jedward are going to invade the stage, throw you off, and start talking about a load of old rubbish.
I know. I was there for that, and it was absolutely hilarious because I've never seen anybody panic more in my entire life than what's shot across your face.
Well, what would you do if Jedward arrived?
Well, I laughed when it happened to you.
I loved it. I looked up, I thought to myself, come on, there's only one person he'll be supportive. He's not.
No. I was like, do it again. But on a serious note, though, like we see a lot of these kind of stories where the kind of the diversity aspect kicks in because they need to kick up a fuss in the headlines and they want people to jump on and support them. And the main example I always go back to is British Vogue. They did this edition. No.
Sorry.
I'm going to.
Does Pete read British Vogue? I think you do, don't you? I think you do, don't you?
I'm reading for the article.
Come on. Admit it.
Anyway. When they
I read magazines like that, mostly for the photos.
Yeah, they did this edition where it was everybody with disabilities or with like kind of against body conformity kind of things. And they was like, that's great. And everybody's like, oh, isn't this wonderful? It's great, it's diversity, it's body positivity. And then they have yet to hire any of those people back.
I genuinely think it's white, public school, Oxbridge men kicking the ladder of opportunity away from people like them. All of this diversity targets all seem to be imposed by people like you and me, people who look like us.
Yeah, and ultimately, nobody comes out of this well anyway.
No.
Apart from maybe the city of Liverpool.
They didn't turn up.
Yeah, they didn't turn up.
Hey, mate.
Yeah.
I'm not turning up for that, lad. That's a load of old I'm not doing that, mate.
Liverpool, if you'd like to send your letters of complaint to Andre Walker at talkTV for that accent.
But Jennifer, do you not think that there comes a moment when we have to say there's a war on women?
Well, I mean, obviously with the whole women's spaces and especially in women's sports, I mean, that's ridiculous. You cannot have somebody who is born a man competing with women. Full stop. That's not hateful language. That just should not happen. Also, I'm just so curious as to where all of the feminists have gone over since the trans thing came to the forefront. I mean, there really are, whether it's women's bathrooms or again, women's sports, they seem to have been forgotten. So I don't know if there's a war on women. I mean, like, I've had a pretty good life being a woman, so I have no complaints. I think there's a lot of advantages, actually. I worked in the city for 20 years. I was probably treated better.
Has Simon Cowell, Peter, decided that transgender women, transgender men, I'm confused, are allowed into boy bands? Is it true or is it false?
It's true.
It's absolutely true.
That was The Woke That Was. Continues after the break. It's time for That Was The Woke That Was with Andre Walker.
Joe Biden has said that only one man can stop him running for president. Who is it?
Well, he said it was God.
Yes, and does that surprise you that he's got people talking to him in his mind?
Well, I mean, does it surprise me? I think it's, the only people that can actually stop him are his wife, who's clearly running the show, his son Hunter, who after several years we've heard he has no professional dealings with, now is his biggest advisor, and his sister Valerie. So the true answer is his family are the only people that can stop him. But the answer to your question is what he did say in that interview with George Stephanopoulos on that ABC was the Lord.
Can I ask you this question? How worried are you about the fate of the American Republic when somebody who has been ruled incompetent for a criminal trial, and just to remind people, a US court, now you can disagree with that court if you want, but a genuine court has said that had he been prosecuted for criminality, he would be incapable of standing trial, and yet that man has the nuclear buttons. How worried are you? Yeah,
you're exactly right. And that was the Robert Hur case. And by the way, they just dropped Trump's similar case, the documents case, yesterday. That's a very big deal for Trump.
It wasn't yesterday. It was on Monday.
Oh,
remember?
Earlier this week.
Today is Saturday.
I don't even know what we're doing here. I'm so confused. Okay.
She can't remember the days.
No, okay. So
today's Saturday.
Okay, I didn't.
Now.
That was not in my notes.
Well, she's made it worse now. Right. There were no notes supplied. given the questions in advance.
Sorry. Okay, sorry.
Well, I know.
sorry.
I keep telling them not to admit they got the questions in
Sorry.
advance, but it's rubbish. Well, at least if I got news for you, deny it.
Okay, let's start over. Okay, so how worried am I? Well, look, I've been saying for several years Joe Biden is not competent enough to stand another, run for another term. And if he's not competent enough to do that, he's certainly not competent enough to be the president of the United States. The only, I guess, upside in that is anybody who saw that debate a few weeks ago, he's clearly not running the country. So, it's probably people with just the same ideology and politics.
There is an argument that I've advanced. So,
Sure.
so half of this audience are American, half are British. The American half will know that any president will appoint tens of thousands of people within the administration. So it's not quite the same as in Britain. If the Prime Minister's absolutely shocking, then there would be serious problems. Actually, there is an argument in America. It's not a very good argument, but there is an argument in America for saying, well, the president's only one man.
However, we vote for the president, and we did not vote for the other people who are behind the scenes.
Well, who's Joe Biden going to vote for?
Right. So, well, look, he's not going to be the nominee in November, right? There's
So explain.
Well, I mean, look at him, watch him. And the only thing that happened last Thursday, several Thursdays ago after that debate, is that the media finally realized the jig is up. And we have to start covering this properly. They've been running cover for him for 3 years, right? I mean, you can even go back to in 2020 when he ran the campaign from the basement due to COVID and all this stuff. So no matter what they say, they're going to have to probably at this point, so they can keep the hundreds of millions of dollars that they've raised, it'll probably have to be Kamala, who polls even worse than he does. But yeah, that man is not going to be running against President Trump.
Tonight is, a fun show.
Okay.
But what about the assassination? This whole thing that Donald Trump was shot at. I personally blame all of the Democrats, and we're talking about Joe Biden. I genuinely think that they are responsible. The hatred in politics.
Look, I mean, it's hard to believe that it was a week ago today, Saturday, that this happened.
Oh, yes, it was.
And,
she's remembered. It was
I was just... I'm a quick study.
She's remembered that today is Saturday, not Tuesday.
You only have to tell me once.
Well, I know, I told her. Yeah, well, she came over because she was a banker. Yeah, she's pretty good at this as well. Well, I know she's more intelligent than I am. What can I say?
Okay,
I can't believe I forgot it was Saturday.
I don't know what to tell you, but it's hard to believe that it was a week ago today. And while the shooter is the only person directly responsible for the assassination attempt on the, former and hopefully future president of the United States, you've got to think, while we don't know his motivation, that the people on the left, including the Biden administration, including the mainstream media, including Hollywood actors and pundits, have been telling American people, this guy is a dictator, this guy is a fascist, this guy is Hitler. The New Republic had a picture of him just a few weeks ago on the cover with a Hitler mustache. Yeah. If you are told that over and over again because you only consume a certain type of media, who's to say some kid's not going to go, you know what? If I could have gone back and killed Hitler in 35, I would.
Before we move to the next question, can I just rebuke something?
Yeah, sure.
I said on my show that the reason that somebody threw a milkshake at Nigel Farage is because they didn't have a gun and they didn't have Semtex. I believe it's an act of terrorism. I believe that these people just want to stop any dispute or any debate without, you can phone up my show and call me an idiot. You can phone up my show and say I'm wrong. You can do whatever.
That was good timing. That was very good. Somebody's very funny.
You can do all those things. But do you know something? I just think debate is such a great thing. And why do young people hate debate so much? Anyway, Jennifer, given that we hate debate so much, who was it that Joe Biden said would be the person that would stop him from running?
That would be God.
Amen to that, sister. It was God. OK, so, Ben, the Ministry of Defence has wasted £3.4 million on how many diversity people? So, do you know what we were doing? We were going to ask, have they wasted money on diversity officers? But we knew you'd know the answer to that. The question is now, 3.4 million, how much do you reckon they bought?
How many diversity officers?
Now, by the way, the British Navy has more admirals than ships.
Yeah.
Horrendous.
Has done for the last 60 years. Absolutely. It would be hard to find these diversity managers if they're in camouflage. So if they're actually good at their jobs, we don't know. I don't know. Is a short answer. We've probably got in somewhere in the region of, I don't know, what? How 3.5 million? So that's
3.4 million.
3.4 million. That is going to be a lot of people, isn't it? That's a lot of people.
It's going to cost you a lot.
I would remind you that DEI people are paid significant amounts of money, so it might not be as many as you think.
But do you know something, Ben? You were in Parliament when all of these votes went through, the budget went through, whatever. How can it be right that somebody who is interested in lesbian diversity, or I don't know what it is, transgender, whatever, these kids, and I used to live next door to Victoria Barracks in Windsor. These kids are running into machine gun fire for 16 grand a year, and then some idiot is telling them that they behaved in an off-colour way and earning 70 grand a year. It's just despicable, isn't it?
No, and ultimately, if you are willing to put your life on the line for our country, it doesn't matter a jot what your sexuality is, what your gender is, what your race is. If you put your life on the line for our country, then we've got
Ben,
your back.
I'm going to have a go at you as a former member of Parliament. 70 or 80% of people who are on the street, homeless, taking crack, taking heroin, all that sort of thing, they are former soldiers. And by the way, I've supported the government that you were a member of Parliament supporting. So I'm as guilty as you. But literally, we are voting these people in, and they are allowing the mental health problems to get out of control and paying for a lesbian diversity admiral when we've got guys eating rats on the street because they're mentally ill.
Look, it's not right that we have former service personnel that are homeless. And I think the last government did a very good job on that. Certainly the last Veterans Minister did a fantastic job on veterans homelessness. And I'm willing to stand by that. I think he did a very good job. When it comes to spending priorities for the military, you don't get to vote on that in Parliament. You don't say, actually, there are going to be X number of diversity officers. You vote for big packages of spending.
Who decides that then?
But David, you have, in all your years, David, there's been an explosion of deserving cases and people who work for deserving cases and social workers. And, I got diagnosed with ADHD the other day. I don't give a toss.
You shocked me.
Get out of here. But everything now is a deserving case. Why aren't we supporting the people who are running into machine gun fire and fighting? I look at the police.
Actually,
police can't do anything.
I was going to suggest another thing. Why don't we give them decent homes?
Yes.
One of the ongoing scandals all the way through the last government, all 14 years of it, and going into the previous Labour government, was that the people who are fighting for our country, or were going to ask to fight for our country, they and their families live in the most shocking accommodation in the country.
But you know exactly what's happened, and we're going to move on after this. You know exactly what's happened, which is, let's sell off all this housing and return them to the communities they're from. You're from the northeast, I'm from the northwest. These people that fought for this country and lived in Windsor, whether they be Coldstream Guard for you or Irish Guard for me, they get sent back up north after they finish. There are no council homes for them. There's nothing for them at all. No. But anyway, Ben, how many diversity? You are screwed with this. How many diversity officers?
I know the answer.
I'll tell you what I'll do.
I'll tell you what I'll do. My fingers under and show you.
No, Ben, I'm going to get my
trace it.
I'm going to get my calculator out. I'm going to ask you.
Go on then.
How much do you reckon the average diversity officer earns?
Probably 50 grand.
50,000.
And the rest.
Okay. So what we're going to do is we're going to take 3.4 million. We're going to divide it by 50,000. I'm going to let you away with this.
Go on.
The answer on my sheet is 62. Your mathematics would have made it 68. I think it's close enough. Congratulations.
That was The Woke That Was. Continues after the break. It's time for That Was the Woke That Was with Andre Walker.
David, Just Stop Oil. Protesters were caught vandalising what at Elon Musk's showroom in Germany?
I've got a feeling that this is something that's supposed to be better for the environment, isn't it? Wasn't it one of his electric cars?
Yes.
By any chance?
I find the man pathetic.
What, Elon Musk?
Yeah.
That man will probably has changed the world.
Yeah, he's freed
How
the
anybody
bird.
finds Elon Musk pathetic, I just do not comprehend. How do you just
agree.
like Elon Musk? I do not comprehend.
He built
I
an
agree.
underground system in Las Vegas that didn't have an underground system.
He's
right?
building one of the most...
No.
Whoa. You cut me off all the time.
And then used
Lord.
and then
Absolute insanity. I've heard you
And
come
then
out with
used-
some claptrap before, but that takes the absolute biscuit. I sit here week after week listening to you mumble on, but honestly, that one, it's all coming out now. Honestly, I finally...
I hate you. I hate you.
Honestly, the man is
liberate
changing
Twitter.
the face of the world.
Absolutely.
He has done more for the environmentalist cause than anybody in Just Stop Oil. He will
And
do
free
more.
speech.
And free speech. He is building
And
the
free
Starlink
speech.
system. He has done more
So he's
for
building the
freedom
Starlink
and the human.
system.
The Starlink system.
Starlink system.
And he's, oh my God, Elon Musk was be celebrated. He is person of the year till the day he dies. My Lord,
So, Pete,
what is wrong with
Pete,
people?
what do you really think?
You really don't want me to answer that question.
Pete, no, hang on a second. Right. Pete is the co-host of this show, right? He's always wanted my job since.
Yeah.
And this is the first time you've really gone for
Oh
it.
my Lord!
Over
I have a
Elon
limit.
Musk.
I have of
all the shit I've said to you, all the
It's
shit.
not cake in the face. It's not ridicule.
Right, come on, get on with it.
No.
Come on, get on with it. Get in there. Go on. Okay.
Oh, finally, Rishi Sunak, this is how you do a coup. Right, here we go. Oh, you get quite a good view here, don't you?
Wait a minute,
Yeah.
is this how it's going to work with Biden and Harris?
Yeah. No, it's a
Hey,
Barbara
listen. My vice president is the first black Trump you've ever seen. Okay, come on, Pete.
Yeah.
Get on with it.
Where are we up to? Oh, we're talking about Elon Musk.
Oh, he can't do it
We're
now.
talking about Elon Musk.
Yes.
Oh my God.
Right. No, stop. I love Elon Musk. I'm from Wigan, mate. Read.
Okay.
And I like a pie.
Yeah. Sorry, Mum. That was his best Wigan accent. I know. I won't mind it. I know he's from Lee, which is like the bus stop in Wigan. But yeah, all right.
It is.
I'll have a word.
It is.
That was
Yeah.
my mother. Do you think they've actually been effective in any way whatsoever in terms of kind of convincing anybody that they're right?
No, only negatively.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
I mean, they have become... They're a satire of themselves
Yeah.
now. They are basically an object of ridicule, even amongst people who cared passionately about the environment. They're utter disaster.
How much
How
do you think they set the cause back by?
Yeah.
Because I really think young people obviously all want to change the world, and we just see these people just make a mockery of it.
Yeah, absolutely. That's bang on. They've actually set the cause back. They have made themselves an object of ridicule.
But don't you think a lot of that is because it's not authentic, right?
Yes,
It's the
that's
same thing we
exactly it.
saw with BLM. It's the same thing we see with, Just Stop Oil. It's the same thing we saw with a lot of the campus protests in America. Like,
If you pull down the statue of somebody who was a slave owner 200 years ago, film it on a phone made by a 9-year-old in a Chinese
Exactly.
labour camp, you're an idiot.
yes, absolutely. It's
So he's presenting.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, yeah. Back
I
to
was
you.
going to say,
Back to
Jennifer,
you.
why do you think Just Stop Oil have never really made it big in America?
Well-
like of all protest movements, you'd have thought they'd have hop, skipped, and jumped across the pond, but they just haven't in a way, and I find that interesting.
Would American motorists stop?
That's a great point. I think it's our Second Amendment, quite frankly. I think it's our Second Amendment.
As I was asking that question,
Yeah.
Do you know
I got a pretty good reason.
do you know what? They're sat there going, just stop, and they're going, no, put your foot on the gas.
Yeah, no, exactly. But there is a real answer to that question, and it's if you look at, I think the UK has always been a little more left-leaning. Even I think a lot of conservatives would be considered Democrats in America. So I also think there's a more green sort of spirit here because Americans I work too hard, I pay too many taxes, I'm a goddamn American, and I'm not going to freeze, and I'm not going to, I want clean air, I want clean water, I want a beautiful space. But first of all, half this stuff doesn't even make sense. It's a power grab. It's a money-making thing, this net zero. And so, I come from a beautiful area.
Okay.
People look after the environment without being told to.
Okay, Pete, what is the question?
Okay, so David, Just Stop Oil protesters were caught vandalising what at Elon Musk's showroom in Germany?
I would like to say his Twitter account, but it's his electric car.
You're correct. It is electric cars.
Okay, so I'm going to say thank you so much. And do you know something? Pete Barnes, our co-host, who supports us so much. You sat in the chair.
Finally.
Now. No.
Yes.
No, he's not.
A new reign of terror has begun.
It will not be allowed to continue. Thank you so much to all of my guests. Thank you so much to David Maddox. Thank you so much to Ben Everitt. Thank you so much to Jennifer Ewing. But of course, the winner today has to be the bloke who sat in the chair, Mr. Pete Barnes, with 8,500,068.453 points, which I think is a record. Until next time, goodbye.